All right, today we're going to be talking about Lesson 5D, subtracting mixed numbers with borrowing. So just real quick, I just want to review a couple of instructions you'll need to follow when we need to regroup and use borrowing. Now I'm going to kind of talk quickly through this because I know you can read these 7 tips to follow, and number 8 is to check. But I just want to give you a quick overview and a few reminders. So make sure that you KAO all subtraction problems. So don't do anything to addition problems. If it's a subtraction, make sure you do KAO, keep, add, opposite. We also want to make sure, because we're subtracting, that we have a common denominator. So don't forget about that. Those are key things to remember when subtracting and also adding. Addition, once you have changed the problem into an adding problem, remember, because we're doing KAO, then we're going to be checking a couple of things, and this is the new part for today's lesson. We want to check absolute value. So subtraction problems, we want to figure out which mixed number has the largest. We need to rearrange. So if we are subtracting with the, remember with adding a positive and a negative, different signs subtract, then we're going to rewrite the problem and put the mixed number that's larger first, okay? Please do not try to do this in your head. Then we're going to decide whether our final answer will be positive or negative. So again, part of our song is keep the sign of the higher number, then you'll be exact. But the main thing that I want to talk about right now is the difference when the first fraction is larger or when the second one is, because this will determine whether we're going to borrow or not. So here's an example. If we were subtracting these two numbers, we would do 8 minus 2 with no problem, and 7/8 minus 1/8 would work. So this problem is ready to go as is. But if we had an example like this, where the 8 and the 2, those are written correctly because 8 minus 2 will go first, but we cannot do 1 minus 7. So this is an example that we're going to need to borrow from the integer, and we're going to talk about borrowing today. So the first thing I wanted to show you is how to do the borrowing. So you're not really going to do a problem yet, we're just going to borrow. So here's what this looks like. If we want to borrow from the 8, we're going to take 1 away from the 8. And remember, 8 is the same as 7 plus 1. So this is where the 8, so we had 8 and 2/9. Now, the other thing we can do, now this is going to be really confusing at first because we're not actually doing it in a problem yet. This 1 is the same as 9 over 9. Remember, any number over itself, 9 over 9 is 1, 3 over 3 is 1, 4 over 4 is 1. So we can change the number 1 into any fraction we want. And this one I chose 9 over 9 because we already have a denominator of 9. So 8 and 2/9 can become 7 and 11/9. So this is kind of the long process to get there. So I want you to practice borrowing from the 5. So we're going to borrow from the 5 and make it a 4. And when we do that, we're going to make it a 4 plus, now we're taking 1 away. Now remember, this 1, so this right here, 4 plus 1, and then we have our fraction, 3/7. So we're going to do something with this 4 plus 1. So what I'm doing is I'm borrowing 1 from the 5, so I'm making it a 4, and I'm borrowing the 1. This 1 right here, I'm going to change that to 7 over 7, and then I still have my fraction, 3/7. So what I've done is I've taken my 5, I've borrowed 1 from the 5 to make it a 4, and I've turned my 1 into a fraction that is going to be helpful. And then I'm going to put these two together. So here's your 4. Now remember, the one that I borrowed is 7 over 7, and 7 plus 3 is 10 over 7. And then now if we were to reduce that, we would get back to our 5 and 3/7. So we're just going to stop right here, and then we're ready for the next part of the problem if we need to borrow. So the next video is just going to show you how to work these out in problems, but I just wanted to show you how to borrow from the 4 to make this in proper fractions. So borrowing takes a mixed number into still a mixed number, but now our fractions in proper so that we'll be able to subtract.